There are places in this world where the veil between life and death thins. Places where the living walk alongside those who've never moved on. And there is perhaps no setting more ripe for haunting than the college campus. A liminal space between youth and adulthood. A pressure cooker of stress, sleep deprivation, and secrets. Tonight we share 3 chilling tales, whispered through these very halls. Stories rooted in truth, passed down by those who lived them, or those who never quite left. Welcome back to Room for Horror. Turn off the lights, lock your door, and listen closely. First, we step into the shadowed corridors of a secluded college where a student's presence was questioned because she was never officially enrolled. This is the story of the girl who shouldn't have been there, but somehow was. It was the start of sophomore year at a secluded college nestled deep in the woods of the northeastern United States. The campus, known for its strict housing policies and small, picturesque setting, exuded an air of isolation that some students found comforting, while others felt unease. Abby Carson transferred mid-semester after unforeseen circumstances forced her to leave her previous institution. She arrived on a rainy Thursday evening, wheeling 2 suitcases up the stone steps of Birch Hall, a women's dormitory built in the early 1900s. The building creaked with history. Her room, 307, sat at the end of a long hallway where the overhead lights flickered intermittently. Her roommate, Naomi, had already been living there for 3 weeks. She had been informed of a new roommate's arrival but received no details. When Abby entered the room, Naomi was sitting cross-legged on her bed, earbuds in, sketchbook on her lap. Abby was pale, too pale, and thin, as if she hadn't eaten properly in weeks. Her long, jet black hair fell over her shoulders in damp strands. She didn't wear makeup and rarely smiled. She wasn't rude, just quiet. Over the next few days, Naomi noticed peculiarities. Abby didn't attend orientation, never left for class, and her bed was always meticulously made. She lacked textbooks or even a student ID. Naomi initially attributed Abby's behavior to shyness or perhaps depression. Abby responded to questions but rarely initiated conversation. One night, Naomi awoke to the sound of whispering. At first, she thought it was the wind scraping branches across the window, but the voice was inside the room, low, repetitive, like someone chanting. Turning over, she saw Abby sitting on her bed, facing the wall, rocking slightly. Naomi whispered, asking if she was okay. The whispering stopped. Abby slowly turned her head toward Naomi, her eyes glassy and unfocused. Then, almost mechanically, she lay down and pulled the blanket over her. The next morning, Abby acted as if nothing had happened. Naomi tried to dismiss the incident, but couldn't shake the unease. Later that week, she visited the registrar's office to pick up an enrollment verification form. Curiosity prompted her to inquire about Abby Carson. The clerk typed for a moment, frowned, and stated that no one by that name was registered. Naomi insisted, but the clerk suggested a possible delay in processing. That night, Naomi returned to the room earlier than usual, hoping to find some proof of Abby's existence. Books, a laptop, anything with her name. The closet was nearly empty. Her desk drawer contained only blank sheets of paper. The only personal item Abby seemed to own was an old photograph taped to the inside of her closet. The photograph depicted a group of girls smiling outside Birch Hall. One of the girls was Abby. The picture looked old, faded, as if taken decades ago. On the back, in looping cursive, were the words, Birch Hall, Fall 1976. Naomi's breath hitched. That night, Abby didn't return to the room. The next morning, her bed was gone, the sheets folded, mattress stripped. No sign she had ever been there. When Naomi reported it, housing claimed she had been assigned a single from the start. There were no records of Abby Carson, no enrollment, no keycard activity. No one believed Naomi had ever had a roommate. But Naomi remembers. She remembers the cold feeling whenever Abby stood too close. She remembers the whispering, and sometimes, late at night, when the wind brushes the window just so, she swears she hears it again. Next, we leave the silent dorm halls for the echoing classrooms of a prestigious university in the Pacific Northwest, where a beloved professor returned after a tragic accident, only not in the way anyone expected. The campus prided itself on two things: its ivy-covered walls and its legendary faculty. Among them was Professor Walter Granger, a man whose reputation loomed even larger than the ancient oak tree outside his classroom. He'd taught American legal history for 37 years, never missed a lecture, never handed out a syllabus, never raised his voice. His students both feared and revered him. He was tough, but fair, sharp as a scalpel, with a voice like a sermon from another century. When the fall semester of 2019 began, Professor Granger was set to teach his usual Tuesday and Thursday lecture in room 202 of the oldest academic building on campus. But just a week before classes started, tragedy struck. While driving home from a faculty meeting on a rain-slick road, Granger's car lost control and veered off a bridge. It took 2 days to recover the vehicle. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The school released an official statement. Classes were reshuffled, a memorial was held. But the very next week, students began reporting something strange. Room 202, Granger's old lecture hall, was occupied every Tuesday and Thursday morning, just like before. Students passing by swore they heard a lecture going on, the sound of chalk against the board, that deep, methodical voice. Campus security investigated, but found nothing. The doors were always locked. Still, rumors spread like wildfire. One brave sophomore, curious more than anything, decided to skip his scheduled class and peek through the narrow window of room 202. What he saw chilled him to the bone. There, standing at the front of the room, was Granger, pacing, lecturing, alone. But the classroom was bathed in a strange grayish light, like dusk had somehow seeped into the room. Dust particles floated like smoke, and the chalkboard was covered in notes. Perfect, crisp notes in Granger's unmistakable handwriting. The student blinked, and the room went dark. When he tried to open the door, it was locked. Later, when he returned with security, the room was empty. Clean. Chalkboard wiped. No sign anyone had been inside. More reports followed. One girl said she entered the room by accident, thinking it was her sociology class. Inside, she found Granger standing at the podium. "Are you lost?" he asked without looking up. She stammered. I thought this was... "This isn't your class," he interrupted, "but you're welcome to stay. We're discussing landmark dissenting opinions in Supreme Court history." She stayed, sat in the second row. It was only after 10 minutes that she realized. His hands were trembling. His suit was wrinkled. There was dried blood on the collar. She stood up, heart pounding, and bolted out. When she returned later to prove what she'd seen, there was no trace of the lecture. Eventually, the administration locked room 202 permanently, but that didn't stop the sightings. Campus janitors claimed the lights would flicker on at exactly 9:15 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursday. Some said they heard someone walking the empty halls at night, murmuring legal doctrine under his breath. The truly brave, or the truly foolish, tried to speak to him. One student left a note on the chalkboard overnight. "Professor, do you know you're dead?" The next morning, the chalkboard had a response. "No, I'm just late." Now for our final story. Imagine having a gift so strange that the faces you draw are more than just images. A talent so dark it summons more than inspiration. An encounter with death itself through art. It started like any other semester for Mara, a quiet art student. She transferred in during the fall, hoping to escape the noise of her previous school and start over. She wasn't particularly social, preferring the company of sketchbooks and charcoal to people. Her hair was always tied in a messy bun. Ink smudges permanently marked her fingertips, and she moved with a kind of caution, like someone who had already seen too much. No one knew much about her. She wasn't on social media, she rarely stayed on campus after class, and the only professor she seemed to have any connection with was an older man who taught advanced figure drawing. He'd once mentioned to a colleague that Mara had a gift. Not just technical talent, but something else. Something harder to name. A sensitivity. Mara had always drawn faces. That much was clear. Sketch after sketch of strangers, some old, some young, some happy, some tragic. But the thing that unnerved her professors was that many of these faces bore marks of suffering. Slashed mouths, hollow eyes, expressionless stares. At first, it was chalked up to a dark style. Art students often fixated on the grotesque, but over time, the drawings took a turn. The figures in Mara's work weren't just eerie, they were familiar. One instructor, grading her portfolio late at night, realized that one of the sketches bore a striking resemblance to a janitor who had died on campus just a few weeks earlier. Another drawing matched the face of a student who had died in a car accident that semester. The features were identical, too precise to be coincidental. Whispers began to circulate. People said Mara was cursed. Others believed she was simply disturbed. But one classmate, Lena, decided to confront her. Lena was outspoken, skeptical, and didn't believe in ghost stories. When she saw Mira alone in the campus cafe one afternoon, she approached her with a half-joking tone. "Where do you get the faces for your drawings?" Mara didn't look up. "I don't get them. They come to me." Lena laughed. "Seriously, though, some of those sketches look like people who—" "I know," Mara said, cutting her off. "They don't leave me alone until I draw them." Lena paused, unsure if Mara was joking, but the look in her eyes, tired, almost haunted, was enough to silence any sarcasm. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Her curiosity had grown into unease. She pulled up Mara's online portfolio, which was hard to find but not entirely hidden. As she clicked through the images, she noticed something bone-chilling. One of the drawings uploaded just the night before looked exactly like her roommate, Suki. Same hairstyle, same nose piercing, same dimpled smile, but something was wrong. In the sketch, Suki's eyes were missing, just empty sockets, and her mouth had been stitched shut with what looked like thread. Lena slammed her laptop shut, heart racing. She wanted to believe it was a coincidence, a twisted prank maybe, but the next morning Suki didn't show up to class, or the day after that. 2 days later, campus police found Suki's body near the maintenance shed behind the art building. Her face had been mutilated. Her eyes were gone. Her mouth stitched shut with black thread. Lena dropped out of school within the week. The discovery of Suki's body set the campus on edge. Rumors of a killer spread fast, but nothing about the murder made sense. There was no sign of forced entry, no fingerprints, and the thread used was an antique kind, hard to find. The kind used in embroidery, not modern textiles. The only clue was a single charcoal drawing found in Suki's dorm. Unlabeled, unsigned, but unmistakably Mara's. When the police questioned Mara, she was calm. Too calm. She admitted to drawing the image, but insisted she didn't know how Suki died. "They come to me in dreams," she explained. "I don't know their names. I don't know what happens to them. I just see them. And then I draw." She wasn't arrested. No evidence tied her to the scene, and her alibi was airtight. Surveillance footage showed her in the dorm's basement studio the entire night. Still, something about her explanation didn't sit right. In the weeks that followed, Mara stopped attending classes altogether. Her dorm room was found empty one morning, the walls covered in drawings. Faces, hundreds of them, each sketched with brutal precision. And pinned above her bed, a note scribbled in charcoal. I tried to stop, but they won't leave me alone. She was never seen on campus again, but that wasn't the end. After Mara's disappearance, students began reporting strange sightings. People claimed to see her sitting in the back of empty lecture halls. Some said they saw her wandering the basement studios, sketchbook in hand. Her eyes were always open, always staring, and in every sighting she never blinked. Security footage captured nothing. Then the drawings started appearing. Not pinned to walls, but slid under dorm room doors. Anonymous sketches, always of students, always disfigured, and every time, without fail, the student depicted in the drawing would disappear within a week. Some say Mara opened a door to something beyond understanding. Others believe she was never drawing ghosts at all, but the future. A kind of death oracle, her gift twisted into a curse. Whatever the truth, the art building was eventually closed. Too many unexplained incidents, too much fear. But sometimes, late at night, janitors still report finding fresh sketches left on the tables in the basement. Drawings of faces no one recognizes, yet. There's something about schools, about their long hallways, empty at night, the sound of footsteps echoing when no one's there, the way memories stick to old buildings like dust in the corners of time. Maybe the dead find comfort in places they once knew, or maybe they never had the chance to leave. Thank you for spending the night with us here at Room for Horror. If you're still listening in the dark, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment with your favorite story, and tell us what you'd do if you met a roommate who never existed, or a professor who just couldn't let go. Until next time, sleep with the lights off. We dare you.